The heat that afternoon wasn't just uncomfortable, it was punishing. The kind of heat that sticks to your skin, makes your shirt cling to your back, and turns every breath into work. Inside the small roadside cafe, fans rattled uselessly, pushing warm air in tired circles. And that's when Amir noticed her. An old woman stood across the street, bent slightly at the waist, her hands trembling as she arranged small bundles of flowers on a piece of cloth laid on the pavement. The sun beat down on her uncovered head. Sweat traced slow lines down her face, but she didn't stop. She couldn't afford to. Amir swallowed hard. He was just a poor waiter barely getting by on tips, sending most of his paycheck home. Some days he skipped meals so his younger sister could eat better. Still, something inside him tightened as he watched the woman sway, steady herself, and keep working. And in that moment, a quiet truth rose in his chest. This story reminds us that kindness still matters. Amir wiped his hands on his apron and glanced at his manager, who was busy counting receipts. Without asking, Amir stepped outside, the heat hitting him like a wall. He crossed the street quickly and approached the woman. "Ma'am," he said gently, "are you okay?" She looked up, startled. Her eyes were sharp but tired, the kind that had seen decades of survival. "I'm fine, son," she replied, though her voice told a different story. Amir hesitated. He reached into his pocket, feeling the few crumpled bills he'd saved for dinner. He knew exactly how far that money had to stretch. Still, he turned back toward the cafe, bought a large glass of cold water, and returned to her. "Please," he said, offering it with both hands, "just drink." For a moment she didn't move, then her fingers closed around the glass. She drank slowly at first, then faster, as if her body had been waiting for permission. When she finished, her shoulders relaxed, and she let out a breath she'd been holding all day. "Thank you," she whispered. "Most people just walk past." Amir smiled softly. "Everyone deserves water." She reached into her bag, pulling out a few coins. Amir shook his head quickly. No, it's on me." The woman studied him, really looked at him, then nodded. "Then let me tell you something instead," she said. Amir listened. She told him how she used to own a small textile shop, how life had been good once, how a fire took everything, how pride lasted longer than savings, how asking for help felt harder than working in the heat. Then she said something that made Amir's heart pause. "You remind me of my grandson," she said softly. "He used to help strangers the same way. He believed kindness always finds its way back." Amir didn't know what to say. He simply nodded. Before he could stand, a black car pulled up beside them. A driver stepped out. Another man followed, dressed sharply, eyes scanning the street until they landed on the old woman. "There you are, madame," he said urgently. "We've been looking everywhere." Amir froze. The woman sighed. "I told you I needed to walk today." The man turned to Amir, surprised. "Thank you for taking care of her," he said respectfully. Only then did Amir realize this wasn't just any old woman. She stood slowly, straighter now, and placed her hand on Amir's arm. "You gave water without knowing who I was," she said. "That matters." The next week, Amir was called into the cafe office. He expected trouble. Instead, he was handed an envelope. Inside was a letter, and a check that made his hands shake. The woman had been a major donor in the city, quietly funding shelters, food programs, and scholarships. She'd started working on the streets again, she wrote, to remind herself what the world felt like when no one noticed. "You noticed," the letter said, "and because of that I noticed you." The money paid off Amir's debts. It helped his sister go back to school. But more than that, it changed how he walked through the world. Because he learned something that day, standing in the heat with a glass of water in his hand. You don't need wealth to change a life. You don't need power to be powerful. Sometimes, the smallest kindness given without expectation becomes the reason someone else believes in humanity again. And that's how kindness quietly changes the world.